Hey there, it's really good to see you again and welcome back to another video here on my channel here on YouTube. And today we're going to be having another top 5 video, and I thought today we'd go for the top 5 large steam tank locomotives available in model form. So without further ado, let's get stuck straight in. Well, first up, I've thought long and hard about what to pick for these, and this one kind of scraped in there at number 5. This is the Hornby L1 264 tank locomotive. It's a model that's been out for a number of years now. When it first came out, it was very reasonably priced, and it heralded a new era of high quality super detailed Hornby models. It was a bit of a strange choice for Hornby, given that none of the real ones survived, and were actually a little bit notorious for not really being the best of runners. I think their nickname was cement mixers, such was the clanking from the rods as they ran. So they were a bit harsh on maintenance. They appeared right at the very end of the London and North Eastern Railway period. So the livery that is seen here in the LNER apple green, the Doncaster apple green, but with British Railways on the tank, is probably a livery that some of them may even have ended up being in the first year of their life or so. They were later on painted into the more standard BR black, but this model really caught my eye when it first came out. I bought it from the now defunct Model Zone, and it was one of those things that even though at the time money was tight, I just felt I really had to have it. But what for me has really let this model down is some of the build quality. Now this particular version needs a full overhaul. The reason why? Well, the motor has become unmeshed from the drivetrain, and I believe this is because the motor bracket is somewhat flimsy on these models, and unfortunately that means that it can come adrift and the gear train can break free, which basically means that your motor ends up just spinning whilst the model goes nowhere, which is a bit of a shame. It also suffers from a fault that if you run it forwards, the particularly, well, overly complex, if I turn that over there, see if we can see that, the overly complex mechanism on the front bogie, which I think was just to try and get it to self-centre, did anything but that, and it tended to crab on track and cause derailments. Now if you double head this locomotive with another locomotive in front, that isn't a problem, and also its running in reverse is completely faultless. But because of that, well, it is an unusual prototype, and it's one which we probably thought we'd never see in model form. But for its foibles, I've put it in at number 5. The next up for me was again another tricky choice, and what I've decided on is to go for the Hornby 72XX. Now, I know a few of you are probably thinking, but they were notorious when they first came out, beset by problems with wibbly wobbly running plates, and a little bit of a problem with build quality, and these were synonymous with the bringing in of the design clever. Now, Hornby really shouldn't have announced that. I think they made too big a thing of design clever, and it blew back in their face. But this particular model is from the second production run, and credit to Hornby, they did address a number of the shortcomings of the first run of this model. Most notably the smokebox dart. In a lot of areas they really went on at great length about these being a moulded plastic thing. Well, on this model it's a metal thing, so it's really much improved for that. The other area that was of great concern to people was the method by which the axles sat in the chassis, and I can't understand, a lot of other people couldn't understand why Hornby did this, but they did. They put square bearings in. Well, the axle's round. That's always going to be a recipe for trouble, and it was, so they very quickly started to wear out, people were finding. However, with the second run, that has been fixed as well, and these are actually quite a faultless performer. They were expensive in their time. They came out along with the 42XX and the 52XX tanks, and I did think about about including one or other of those in this top 5, but for me, the 72XX with the 282 Mikado wheel arrangements really just kind of made it stand out from the crowd. It's the only tank locomotive to get that wheel arrangement, and it's very unusual in Britain's railways for locomotives to take that wheel arrangement. The story behind these, of course, was that they were a rebuilding of the earlier 42XX and 52XX locomotives, which had become, well, surplus to requirements in the downturn of the Great Depression. So the Great Western Railway hit upon the idea of extending the frames, extending the bunker. That increased coal capacity, that increased water capacity, and meant that these could actually run for a good deal of extra distance, which was very, very helpful for the coal trains from South Wales. Unfortunately, it also meant that they were precluded from gaining access to some of the yards which it would have been helpful for them to be able to get in and out of because of their long wheelbase. So they weren't without their faults, but a good number of these have actually survived, courtesy of Woodham's scrapyard in South Wales. And indeed, in one of my recent videos filmed at the East Lancs Railway, I actually was lucky enough to get some film footage of one of these being cosmetically restored inside the Buckley Wells carriage shed. Now for my number 3 slot, I thought I could do no worse than bring in the Bachmann Fairburn tank. Now this locomotive for me has a really good presence. It's a locomotive that was originally built for the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, and it was so successful that much of the design was carried over into the BR standards, and the standard class 4 tank locomotive shared an awful lot of characteristics with this. They were very, very successful, and at least 2 of these have survived into preservation. I believe both of those are based at the Lakeside and Haverthwaite Railway, which is a lovely line and well worth a visit if you're ever in the area. In fact, the whole Lake District is well worth a visit, and you really, if you like that part of the world, don't forget to take a look at the recent videos that we've done. Now, controversial, I've actually put the standard class 4, again a Bachmann model, in at number 2. And you may be thinking, well, that's very, very similar to the Fairburn tank. Well, actually, yes it is, but for me this model is one that holds a great significance. When I was a child, I had the Hornby BL model, which in its day was considered one of the best models on the market, and Bachmann have not disappointed when they've delivered this. True, it has an awful lot of fairly finicky detail in there, and it is prone to shedding some of this injector detail and pipework if it's not subjected to careful handling. But overall, I felt that this locomotive was well worthy to go in at the number 2 slot, despite the fact that I put in at number 3 the Bachmann Fairburn tank. What can be number 1? Now, I thought long and hard about this. There are so many great models on the market, but I came to the decision that actually, for me, the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Radial tank is one that really takes the edge. Bachmann really pulled out all the stops for this. It's a much, much older design than any of the previous 4 that we've gone into. And this locomotive was actually very, very successful. They did survive through into BR ownership, and one of these does survive in the National Railway Museum. I believe it was the first locomotive to be built at Horwich Locomotive Works. It has also been made available as a special through the National Railway Museum, including this as you see here. We did a full box opening and review on both of the National Railway Museum versions. They are beautiful models, but I've got here the one with the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway arched lettering on the tank, and for me they've got this peculiar pre-grouping charm, and I decided that for me that made it the number 1 large tank locomotive. Well, I hope that's been really informative to you. Don't forget to like this video and share it too, and also if you're not already done so, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying thanks again for watching. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon, and a special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Mark Anthony, Michael Churchwood, and Mark McShane. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knob T Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.